This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast brought to you by Prize Picks, coming at you Friday evening. It's May 3rd, 24 hours out from game one out here in Denver on Saturday evening. I'm out in Denver now. So on this episode, it's going to be a little bit more, Denver focused. We're going to bring on Ryan Blackburn, who covers the Nuggets for Mile High Sports. Ryan's been on the pod a few times to do these sort of crossover episodes. You might remember Ryan. I think he last came on the day of the trade deadline when the Wolves traded for Monte Morris, given that he'd covered Morris for a number of years back when Monte was on the Nuggets. I remember Ryan from that. Before we bring Ryan in, though, just so I don't have to bug you during the episode, a couple of quick announcements. One, mark your calendars for May 9th. We are doing an outside show at Falling Knife Brewing Company on Thursday night at 7 p.m., happy hour at 6 p.m. We've done a bunch of live shows at Falling Knife over the years, but those had to be inside because the Timberwolves season normally ends before spring begins. So we're going to be set up outside on a stage in the parking lot area, kind of right next to the patio there. If you've been to Falling Knife before, no more space issues. I know a lot of you were struggling to get a spot at the last show. The tap room has been full for Wolves fans, so it shouldn't be a problem this time. If you guys overflow the parking lot, I don't know. I think that's on you. That's a good problem. That's a good problem to have. We want to have fun with this one. Again, it's May 9th. That's the day before Game 3 at Target Center. Let's do it big. Come hang out. I will give a Naz Reid towel to the person wearing the coolest, wackiest attire there. I have a Naz Reid towel from that night. That'll be a giveaway. So 6 p.m. happy hour at Falling Knife. Live show starts at 7 p.m. This will be a fun one. I also want to let you know about the Autograph app because when you download the Autograph app, you have a chance to win tickets to Wolves Game 3 at Target Center for $24. To be eligible for the tickets, all you have to do is download the Autograph app and go to the Timberwolves community on there, where you'll see tons of Wolves content. I would just recommend doing it regardless. Articles, podcasts, YouTube, all that, it's on there. You get rewarded with fan credits by consuming content through their app, but they do have a lot of these giveaways, whether it be memorabilia or tickets, and they are giving away a pair of tickets or discounted tickets for $24, which is a lot less than I've heard that they're going for. How you get those are May 9th between 2 and 2:15 p.m. Central Time. Set an alarm on your phone. Get in the drawing for cheap Wolves tickets. I want one of you guys to get them. I want it to be a podcast listener who gets those tickets. So download the Autograph app. I can do that with the QR code that's on the screen. You can use the referral code DaneMoore. I'd appreciate it if you did that. Consume some content in their Timberwolves community. And then again, between 2 p.m. and 2:15 on May 9th, they are going to be doing this giveaway for the tickets, just for 1,000 of the fan coins there on the Autograph app. And then lastly, today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. I've been giving you some picks over the course of the week for your daily fantasy lineup on Prize Picks. I really like Naz Reid to have more than 11 and a half points plus rebounds in game one. I think Naz needs to be relied on a little bit more in this one. And then another one on there is more or less than 0.5 made threes for Aaron Gordon. I'm going to say Aaron Gordon makes a 3 in game one. So maybe start making your daily fantasy lineup there with those 2 picks. And you can do that again on the Prize Picks app or at prizepicks.com. Use the promo code DANE for a $100 sign-up bonus. All right, we are now joined by Ryan Blackburn, who covers the Nuggets for Mile High Sports. I already introduced you before, Ryan, as the Monte Morris guy that came on and talked to us. We're here, man. Game one on Saturday. I'm pumped for this series. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's an exciting moment for both of these teams, an exciting moment in the playoffs where the cream kind of rises to the top in these situations. And I was thinking about this a couple days ago, where Boston, Minnesota, OKC, and Denver all punched their tickets onto the second round, the first of any team. And it made me think, hey, regular season matters. Those were the 4 best teams throughout the year. And it was kind of nice to see that actually translate where
I love
these
that.
teams, they took care of business, and now we get to reap the benefits of it.
This is weird. Would you think Denver would have better odds of winning this series, if it was against Oklahoma City?
Probably. Probably because, oh, actually, you know what? That's a good question because if Denver's on the road in that situation, then
No,
it
same
probably
thing. Let's do the same thing.
same
Let's
thing.
just say Denver
Mm.
has home court. Are they more favored than what it's like minus 200 or whatever, like
Yeah, yeah.
70%, right? 65% Denver.
I think so. I think that there is a general assumption around the NBA that the OKC Thunder, despite the fact that they earned their spot at the top of this conference, that they have the most glaring weakness of these three teams, which is the size in the middle when trying to deal with a player like Nikola Jokic.
Yeah.
And that is a tough flaw. And while they ran through Jonas Valanciunas like water in the first round, this is a little bit of it would be a little bit of a different challenge for them. And that's just one of those things where if you can't stop plan A, then what hope do you really have in the series? There are so many things that Denver would be able to do off of that where they sort of dictate the terms. I think that Minnesota can dictate the terms a little bit in this one where they change around their defensive matchups. They have the defensive player of the year in the Rudy Gobert, and they've got a lot of size and athleticism on the perimeter. So I'm looking forward to it, man. I think that this will be a challenging one for Denver, even if I have picked them.
What about Boston? Is Boston above the Wolves?
Yeah, because a lot of that is like, how much do you think they would build in the regular season, like the regular season results from
Matchups?
Denver?
None. I don't think that.
Yeah.
I mean, well, actually, that Phoenix series, man, they definitely built that in with the Wolves. I mean, that's why Phoenix was favored on the road. Man. So I don't know. What was that? So I watched that one like Saturday night Celtics Nuggets game. How would it impact it?
Yeah, so basically it was the same exact game both times where Denver and Boston go down to the wire.
Yeah.
Denver executes in the clutch, Boston does not. And there were a couple of things schematically that Denver did that you just couldn't really account for if you're Boston because Kristaps Porzingis was their biggest player. And that's just one of those things that Denver has an advantage over there. So that would probably be, you get the defending champions versus the team that wins 64 games. It's probably a pick 'em.
Yeah, and if the Nuggets are favored here, yeah, no, I would agree with that. It is, I mean, it is interesting how different all four of those teams are that had the four best records. But I like that point. It is cool to see the regular season matter and us get to this point where the teams with the best records are the teams with the best odds probably at winning the championship right now. Let's jump into the series. You wrote today on Friday, again at Mile High Sports. Listeners, you want to check this out, about Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon is like, you wrote your X Factor article, and I agree. He is a Denver one in this. I've been talking about Aaron Gordon a lot. How can you not, just from the initial way the chessboard sets up and the decision to put Gobert on him and all of those things. I think my listeners understand that element, right? That they're going to ignore Gordon with Gobert. Cat's going to guard Jokic, but there's so much more to Aaron Gordon. I've been kind of fascinated with him as a player dating back to Orlando. Like back in the day, listeners maybe remember, I was like really in on Aaron Gordon, a Cat Gordon front court. He is kind of like embodied what I'd hoped there and then been even more. Can you just lay out how and why he's important to Denver and then specifically in this matchup?
Yeah, so the word that comes to mind with Gordon is jack of all trades, where he is a guy who has a variety of different skills, 4th overall pick for Orlando back in the day, and clearly talented enough that he could play a different role if he wanted to. He was traded to Denver back in 2021, and it was a question as to whether he would buy into a role with Denver and whether he would fit into the culture that the Nuggets had established. From day one, he was like, I don't need the ball. I don't need the ball to operate. I don't need the ball. I can set screens. I can run in transition. I can guard the opposing team's best player. I don't have to score. There were so many possessions and so many games where he had 5 shots, 3 shots, things like that, just trying to fit in. And that has really opened itself up for Denver to build a team that features, I think, maybe the best starting lineup in the NBA, where he accounts for everybody's weaknesses in such a manner that there aren't a ton of holes in Denver's starting group when they are all playing at their best. Gordon is a guy who can guard on the perimeter. He's a guy who can switch onto fives. He is a guy who averaged 4.5 assists per game in the first round series. And he's also a guy who rebounds and does a pretty solid job there in traffic and basically grabbed the 2 most important rebounds in the series against LA, where you get those clutch rebounds and it gives Denver an opportunity to have the buzzer beaters, not just like the buzzer beaters themselves. He is the guy that connects everything. He is the glue. Jaden McDaniels is a good approximate there. It's a little bit different, but I do think that Nuggets fans have grown to really appreciate Aaron Gordon and what he brings to the table, even if it's not always about scoring or shooting.
It's just so wild to me that in this series, right, his primary matchup at times will be Rudy Gobert when he's out there in the non-Jokic minutes.
Yep.
Will often be Karl Anthony Towns, and it will often be Anthony Edwards. I've been on my opinion being that whether it's right away or over the course of the series, Denver is going to feel forced to put Gordon on Edwards more and more. I think the calculus has changed in 12 months from the way you need to prioritize guarding the Wolves. I mean, they put Gordon on Cat last year in the playoffs because Ant wasn't what Ant is right now, and KCP probably was more capable of handling that Edwards matchup on his own. But I think just the force that Ant is playing with, not just in the dunks and all that sort of stuff, but the physicality of getting to his spots, to me, approximates Luka. And what does Denver do against Dallas? They put Gordon on Luka. And I think that is something they're going to have to get to. I did a pod with Adam and Harrison before, from DNVR before, and they were both like, no, it's that's KCP's job. Maybe we'll see some Christian Brown, and they were actually right about that. Before that game, he guarded Ant a little bit, did a pretty good job. Am I crazy to think that is an adjustment that is almost certainly coming in this series, that you just have to put Gordon on Edwards?
It comes down to whether the Nuggets can score on the other end to keep pace, because what they often do, Denver, is they won't make these massive changes unless the plan is not working. And if the plan is like, hey, they're still going +5 in most of these games, if they're going +5, +6, +10, whatever it is, then they will probably live with KCP being the sacrificial lamb in that regard, where you force a guy like Edwards, hey, you're going to go around screens all the time. KCP will try to draw some offensive fouls on Gobert and Ant and Towns, and in situations where he's getting around picks and flails everywhere. Like he'll do that thing. But with Gordon, there is a variation there that does work, that he's probably not quick enough, in my opinion, to really keep Ant in front of him. But it also,
I don't know. That's always the argument. Why so KCP moves that? I mean, just because he can't stay in front of him, I don't think that means he could stay in front of him less than KCP. I mean, you're watching him way more than I do, but I don't know. I don't think anybody can stay in front of Anthony Edwards.
That's
honestly is my kind of opinion on it.
That's probably the point, and that's the thing for Denver. Is last year Anthony Edwards averaged over 30 points a game in that series. They were dominant. They were great when he was given those opportunities, and he's a better player now. So there's a healthy expectation that he could cook this matchup. There's no doubt about it. I honestly think that there is a possibility that rather than change up those matchups too much, because what happens in those situations is if you put Aaron Gordon on Edwards and then you're forced to put Michael Porter on Karl Anthony Towns, that could be another pivot point as well, that you don't necessarily want to open up the can of worms that comes with, hey, we're going to go get Cat hot now. We're going to like, rather than have Anthony Edwards be the head of the snake, somebody who like is going to score no matter what he's doing, going to play make no matter what he's doing. You want to open up that can of worms for Karl Towns too after he played the first round that he did? I'm not sure if I want to do that if I'm Denver either. So it is a really, really tough choice.
Yeah, I just the counter argument would be, all right, if it is Porter Jr., they're getting it to Cat in the post, right? Which has its advantage. I mean, and he would be able to easily take Porter Jr., I think, one-on-one, and if he could get deep enough and take that, probably end up seeing some doubles through that. And then, the Wolves get into offense around that. I just think like it's the same thing with Nas. Honestly, it's like the same thing around the whole NBA. When you just get into, okay, our matchup is the post up, it just bogs down everything else. And like you lose that flow, right? You lose, it's just like, okay, you go. It's the same as like clearing out and 4 low and like James Harden isolate
Sure.
or Ant isolate,
Yeah.
And that's why I think I would go to it. And then if Cat starts cooking it, then you can like switch it back. I mean, that's like the thing is, giving it probably different looks, giving Ant, Gordon for a little bit and then giving Cat Gordon for a little bit there too, maybe see if, I mean, who knows how much Peyton Watson or Christian Brown are going to play, but like,
that's the one, in my opinion. Peyton Watson is probably the one that he did not perform well in the Lakers series when matched up head to head on LeBron James, was overmatched physically in that regard. Anthony Edwards is mini LeBron in that fact, where he's like 6'5" and powerful as hell and probably going to kill him in that regard as well. But I also just think the length of Watson could bother him a little bit more than somebody like KCP. And you might get into situations where KCP just doesn't close games. And if that happens, then it opens up, like I said, another can of worms for the T-Wolves in sort of just like you're putting Denver and you're forcing them to make an adjustment and break up their starting five that has the best clutch numbers in like league history or whatever. So I think that whatever you can do to make Denver break first and change up what they're supposed to do, that's exactly what the T-Wolves should be trying. And Ant is obviously a great pressure point there.
You mentioned the late game offense. I want to get to that a little bit later, but let's just like start with the offense as a whole, kind of as an aside in your Gordon piece. You wrote about like the idea that the Wolves have the best defense. It's legit, but I'm going to trust Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Michael Porter Jr. to do enough against that. But you were kind of saying like that's why my focus is more.
Which by the way, pretty ambiguous way to frame that.
I kind of feel it though. I hear it. I mean, like I kind of think like when those three are on the floor too, that it's gonna be okay enough at least for Denver with a chance to break it open. Like the Wolves are not going to stop that threesome. Like that doesn't happen. It's never happened. It's not. I think it's how much can they limit those three and those three kind of as a trio.
Yeah. So most important thing for Wolves fans to understand about this is obviously Jaden McDaniels is a terror. He is somebody who Nuggets fans understand. Nuggets fans appreciate the length and athleticism he provides and the defensive capability that he has. But the other guy is Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who came off the bench, obviously played 30 minutes per game against the Suns. And secretly, like he might be closing a bunch of games. I got to imagine on Jamal Murray and then Jaden McDaniels on Michael Porter. That would not surprise me in the slightest at all. I think that Murray's going to be a major pivot point in this and how he can handle the length and athleticism. Can he get separation? If you remember back to last year, the ball pressure, just walking the ball up the court was a big story in this one where Nickeil was just dogging him the entire time. And it wasn't until game 5 where the Nuggets figured out, hey, you know what? Maybe we should have Aaron Gordon bring the ball up. Like that seems like a good idea. And it kept Jamal fresh and he had 35 points in the final game. So there is something to Denver's going to have to change things up. The perimeter defense on the Wolves is absolutely legit. But if you're Denver, you can't just go away from what your bread and butter is. You got to try to figure out how to do middle pick and roll. You got to try to figure out how to do DHOs with Michael Porter and just continuing to go to Jokic in the post and then run actions off of that. Denver's going to go to those actions, and it's on the T-Wolves to limit, not necessarily stop.
You mentioned Nikhil picking him up full court. I just was at Wolves practice right before we recorded this. I was asking Nikhil kind of about that idea that they now have like a tag team for Jamal in Jaden. And he kind of copped to the idea that like, yeah, that was a lot to play 30 minutes a game. He was like, to pick him up full court. And he goes, and then you get screened by Nikola Jokic, who's a really big dude. And then you get screened by Aaron Gordon, who's also a really big dude. And like that was what they were asking Nikhil to do last season out of necessity. No Jaden McDaniels, and Kyle Anderson would be normally another perimeter defender they throw in the mix. They lost Kyle at the end of that series. I think Nikhil was overexposed from a energy standpoint a year ago, and he still did. We all left that series being like, "Well, Nikhil, that was great on Jamal Murray," And now it's 48 minutes. It is 48 minutes that Jamal is going to need to navigate in this. Wolves fans know, and maybe this sounds like hyperbole, but I really think Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jaden McDaniels are both top 10, top 8 perimeter defenders in the league right now.
I agree.
What Nickeil would be the one that would be argued more, and I could make an argument that Nickeil has been better this year than and that's nothing against Jaden. Nickeil has just been so good, so attached. And what do you need to do against Denver that's going to do all of these things to create separation? Is you need that magnetic skinny guy to stay attached to Jamal Murray, and the Wolves have 2 of those, and it's going to be 48 minutes of them on Jamal. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, and Jamal just had quite an issue with Austin Reeves, and I was surprised by that. I think that there were obviously some injuries, and like he's dealt with stuff for the entire season. His body just doesn't look great, and then he had that sore calf at the end of Game 4, or like sprained calf. And that's obviously not fantastic. The messaging out of Denver has been that, oh, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. He'll be okay. Maybe. I guess we'll see. This is going to be the most physically taxing series that he's maybe had to play in his NBA career. That's quite the leap. And I think if you're the Nuggets, you got to find ways to make it easier on him. You got to run stagger screen actions, try to get some separation organically. You don't have to make Jamal do everything by himself in terms of getting that action. And you're probably going to just have other guys initiate sets. Aaron Gordon, for example, if Rudy Gobert is going to be guarding him, then potentially running some Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray pick and rolls or DHOs is probably not a bad idea, because I got to imagine that Rudy is going to be down the floor a little bit in those situations when Aaron's got the ball. So now he'll come up, and he is one of the best isolation defenders that we've ever seen from a big man. And that's,
but it hurts to not have him back at the rim. And that's what Phoenix just kept doing, is like those Spain back screens on. They should have done it more. If Rudy has to get up to defend the DHO between Gordon and Murray, he has to be there, because Jamal's going to pull it if he doesn't. And that, like, I do this all the time. I like the defending. Rudy's actually good out there. He's actually good out there. There is a truth to the idea that when he is out there, he's not back there where he's better. He's better at the rim than he is out there. So yeah, I'm absolutely targeting that if I'm Denver. And they just need to have more screening action than Phoenix did. I think that's the big, like a super simple thing. Like, get the Wolves cross-matched as much as you can, I think is how you start like cutting down on the teeth of what the Wolves defense is. But the thing is, the good thing about the Wolves defense is it's like, all right, now this isn't the ideal matchup we want on him, but it's still a pretty good deep option that the Wolves had, because they just have a depth of options. Just Jokic quickly against the Wolves defense. I feel like I haven't dedicated enough time to this in general here, but I don't really know what to say other than, like, they're going to guard him how we know they're going to guard him. And that way typically makes him more of a scorer than a passer. Does that matter?
It's a good question, because you look anecdotally at Denver's records when Jokic has certain amount of points versus certain amount of assists. And it probably is the right call to try to make him look for his own shot more as opposed to looking for other shots less. Because he wants to get everybody involved. The Nuggets are best when the ball is popping and when guys are, like you said, back screening for each other, cutting to the lane's opened up because Jokic is on the move, things like that. Usually what's going to happen with the Wolves is Denver's probably going to have to enter the ball into him at the nail or at the post a lot. And he's going to face up and he's going to keep his back to the basket on the left side or right side of the floor. And the Nuggets are going to have to navigate, okay, where is Rudy Gobert if Aaron Gordon's on the baseline? Like, can he continue? Like, can Jokic just get a good shot in those situations? Can he put Karl Anthony Towns in foul trouble in those situations? That is probably, like, that's the biggest drawback of that system, right? Is that if you have your second leading scorer, your guy that Anthony Edwards self-proclaimed is like one of the, like, he's the talented offensive option that you need to have going for this team to be successful. If he's on the bench with 4 fouls with 10 minutes into the third quarter, that's going to give Denver plenty of options. So it is a definite, like, I think Towns, like, because he was great defensively in the first round, save for a couple things here or there, but, or at least that's my impression from the outside. But it does feel like he's improved in that regard as his role has sort of shifted, but it's a different beast with Jokic, man.
Yeah, it is. And I think, like, to that end, it's not just a Cat job. They can't only rely on the Cat, on Jokic, Rudy, on Gobert. Look, there's going to be time. I actually think, I mean, to the extent that those two guys are going to need to rest, like, they're going to get away from Gordon on the floor in the Gobert minutes, just to be like, okay, you can't do this look at it. Now you need to leave Christian Brown wide open, because he's in for Gordon here in this situation. Like, it's not going to be that look for 48 minutes. At some points, it is going to be Kyle Anderson or Naz Reid who are going to take Jokic, and then Gobert is going to be the spy there. And sometimes it's going to need to be Rudy one-on-one. And I think all of those things get progressively better for Denver as you get there. And the best way to expedite that is to get Cat in foul trouble, which is something he just kind of already does on his own offensively, sometimes too, not even just guarding Jokic. But I will say, man, covering Cat for a long time, you never get a better version of him or like a more locked in version of him than when he plays Joel Embiid, Anthony Davis, and Nikola Jokic. It's just the competitive element of that, and the competitor in him goes, I'm just as good as these guys. And he's not. I mean, those are some.
You want the mentality,
but it is. It's a good. I mean that in a good way. It's a good and healthy mentality, and I'm sure listeners are all going through in their head and being like, "Oh yeah, that time Cat had 39 on Embiid." Like it's a thing, and I think we saw it last year in the playoffs too. Like, Cat is not some 10 out of 10 defender, but like, he's going to be locked in on this one, and they're going to have to do things to hurt him against that look. And I think they will. They're going to clear out the corner, and they're going to be like, all right, this is just Jokic is going to catch on the elbow extended, and this is pretty much one-on-one situation. If you want to double here, you're going to need to get a little bit more aggressive. Like, Rudy's going to have to come all the way over. Somebody's going to have to come from the top.
Yeah.
They're going to Jokic is going to put Cat in spots that make it tough to double. Rudy's not going to always be there. That's probably one of the number one things I'm sure Denver is scheming for here. But I do think Cat's antics that people know can be misleading in the sense that you would maybe think against the best competition, Finch referred to it as stray voltage one time. And so we now all refer to it as that like the stray voltage would be up. But I actually think Karl gets the most chaotic when it's like against a 6'7" bench guy who's just trying to.
Oh, Jeff Green.
Exactly. Yep. Jeff Green last year. Aaron Gordon did that, some against him too. Like,
yeah,
that's where he gets frantic. I think in the Jokic matchup, like, for the most part, I think he's going to, remain pretty dialed in on that. A couple more things quickly. We can move through these, but I got the sense from in your column that the Wolves on the offensive glass is something you're concerned about in this series, and clearly Michael Malone was too. From the quote in there, how much of an asset can that be for the Wolves?
Oh, it's undoubtedly one. Like, think about the way that the Suns actually attacked, or like were attacked by the Wolves throughout that series. It was just a relentless onslaught of offensive rebounds, where the number that I put into my article is that in the half court, the T-Wolves grabbed nearly 40% of their own misses in that situation. That is by far the 100th percentile, despite the fact that the Knicks played the Sixers, and that was also a thing that happened. So, like, this is the thing, is that the Nuggets, when their starters are out there with Jokic, Gordon, Porter, like, those guys are all good to great rebounders. They are disciplined, they're solid, and Denver just understands that has to happen. When the bench comes in and you get Aaron Gordon sliding to the 5, you get either Peyton Watson or Michael Porter sliding to the 4, and then you get like Reggie Jackson in there or Christian Brown in there. There's some guys that like do a decent job on the glass, but it's just a different beast of a thing when you've got all three of Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, and Rudy Gobert out there, or you mix in Karl Anthony Towns, or you mix in Kyle Anderson, whoever. Those guys are huge. And like, if all three of those guys in the 3, 4, and 5 spots are going to be bigger than Denver's tallest guy in Aaron Gordon at 6'8", that's a problem. That's something that I'm thinking about. And it's one of the reasons why it would not surprise me if one of DeAndre Jordan or Zeke Naji, most likely DeAndre Jordan, is in game 1. He's in the game 1 rotation.
I think so too.
They try to steal some of those minutes like they did against the Lakers in game 1 of the first round. Now,
like they did in game 80 against the Wolves too.
Exactly.
Jordan played well and they won the non-Jokic minutes.
It sometimes, like, you just need a small contribution. That's what the playoffs are all about from your fringe guys. So I wonder if that helps them out a little bit. But I just said that I'm reliant on DeAndre Jordan impacting the defensive and offensive glass. And like, I don't necessarily feel great about that if I'm a Nuggets analyst trying to figure out, hey, how are the Nuggets going to win this matchup? So that's something I'm thinking about closely.
Let's keep rolling with that. Just what's the importance of the benches in this? Like, from a Wolves perspective, they're looking at Wolves fans are looking at their 6 through 9, and they're looking at Denver's 6 through 9, and it's not close.
Yeah,
like on paper, it's not close. But what I'm trying to figure out is how much does that matter? Because we've spent a lot of time talking about like the non-Jokic minutes and those sort of things, and obviously that's a place the Wolves need to take advantage of. They need to take advantage if DeAndre Jordan's on the floor. But I think just talking about it as the non-Jokic minutes is not that important, because I think it's going to be like 5 minutes a game. Like it's going to be such a small amount. The non-Jokic minutes mattered a lot more during the regular season when Jokic is going to miss, 12 minutes of the game or more. I'm wondering, how do you think almost outside of the non-Jokic minutes, how do you think about the impact of the benches, maybe specifically Denver's to start?
Well, I think about the total level of impact from both benches and what they can just provide in a vacuum. And I think about Peyton Watson and Christian Brown and even Reggie Jackson, obviously, like those were the 6th, 7th, and 8th man in whatever order you want to choose based off of regular season contributions. And then playoffs happen, and sometimes Reggie's playing 6 minutes, sometimes Peyton's playing 4 minutes, sometimes Christian's playing 5 minutes. And I think about that, and I think about the overall level of exhaustion that the Nuggets starters have to have after making a title run last year. And in my article, one of the things that I sort of finished off with was, hey, if you're a defending champion, like, this is the round where it kind of like catches up to you from an exhaustion standpoint, just looking at all 5 of the previous NBA champions.
Particularly if this goes 6 or 7.
Exactly. And like, this is now, could Denver fight through that because they have Jokic? Sure. Because he's one of the most well-conditioned athletes in the NBA, and he'll probably play 42 minutes a game in this series. What they've done for Denver is they have staggered all three of Murray, Porter, and Gordon in those non-Jokic minutes of late.
Yeah.
All three of those guys are out there. You're mixing in Christian Brown and Peyton Watson. Sometimes it's Justin Holiday. If Murray's not out there, it's Reggie Jackson. And you just try to get through it. And Denver generally does get through it. They did a pretty solid job in the non-Jokic minutes in the Lakers series. And that's with one of LeBron or AD on the floor for most of that time. Now, the T-Wolves have a great bench. And all three of the guys, like between Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert, and Karl Anthony Towns, that often stagger with the second unit for that group, they have developed so much chemistry. And like maybe Towns is sort of a secondary factor of that. But obviously Rudy and Conley, like that's an action that Denver's going to have to find an answer to. They'll probably put Christian Brown on Mike Conley and that'll be okay. But
they're just going to switch. Okay. They're just going to switch five. Like that's the thing. I was on the plane today. I was watching the most recent game between these teams again when the Nuggets won the non-Jokic minutes, and like they just did the thing that gets the Wolves offense to bog down, which is to just switch everything, always everything. We dare you to beat us in isolation. And in those non-Jokic minutes, Ant's normally off the floor too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The Wolves don't really or didn't in that game have a great, just go to him in isolation option. It was like, they were just posting up Naz Reid, and like, that's not it, like it would just, all right, switch. Naz has Reggie Jackson on him, and they're like, well, there's 8 seconds left in the shot clock by this point. Like Reggie bump him a couple of times and don't let him just go through you. And it worked. And I think the advantage in the benches battle to me more so can just come in the course of the 48 when Jokic is on there and just being like, okay, it's Peyton Watson versus Naz Reid. Not that I think Peyton Watson's good, but not to take away from him, but Naz Reid, you got to kill that,
Sure.
Nickeil Alexander-Walker, you're guarding Reggie Jackson right now because Jamal Murray's out of the game. You got to kill that, you know, that's how I view the benches battle more than it just being as simple as the Jokic minutes versus the non-Jokic minutes, because at the end of the day, it's this little chunk. Now the Wolves got to win that. They should probably win that. Even if it's 6 minutes, you should win that by 6+ points.
Yeah. But the thing is that when you have guys that you can deploy specifically for that, kind of like Denver last year had Bruce Brown, where they could specifically deploy him. I'm equating him to Nickeil in a lot of ways. That's a 1-2-3 defender who can do a variety of different things on the offensive end and is just like he's going to be out there for all that time because he's so malleable, and it gives you options throughout the game that Denver just doesn't have right now because they've got individual guys that can fill some of those roles, but those roles are going to change so fast that hey, sorry, 3 minutes, you're done.
Right. Yep. No, I mean, and it's going to be a quick hook, I think, on a lot of them. And then the Wolves got to be quick in their mind of okay, Watts is not out here anymore. Gordon's back in, and they're I mean, this is just always against the Nuggets. You have to have this meticulous awareness of who is on the floor, personnel, KYP, right? I don't think there's any team that's more necessary to have against than Denver. Last thing, late game offense. So in game 1 tomorrow, the Wolves are up 97-90 with 5 minutes left in the game. Who are you taking to win?
The fact that I have to think about that shows my confidence in Denver.
I know. I say that because Mike Adore, he said that we probably need to be up by 7 or 8 points before the end of the game to win the game.
Interesting. Because Denver has had that, they had it down 7 or 8 with 2 minutes left to go and 3 minutes left to go against the Lakers. So now the Lakers aren't the Wolves. That's very clear.
Well, offensively, yeah. I don't think there's a huge. I mean, Ant will be out there, but LeBron,
LeBron was tremendous. He really was great.
Yeah, and Ant probably will be in those situations too. I think it devolved for the Lakers because they couldn't guard in late game. I think if 97-90 is enough for the Wolves to win that in late game, it's not because the Wolves just picked the Nuggets apart. It's that they stopped the Nuggets from picking them apart in the way that the Nuggets picked apart the Lakers.
Yeah, so one of the things that stands out with Denver's late game offense, they are really good at taking what the opposition gives them. And if that is a Jamal Murray 12-foot kind of sidestep shot, then they're comfortable enough going to that they're going to be okay with it.
Mhm.
If it is a Jokic kind of like I'm going to drop step up and under in the post and try to get guys up in the air, get to the foul line and stop the clock, then that's another thing that they can get to because Joker does a great job within that
Right.
paint area. Um, and then the other thing is that Michael Porter, who we probably haven't talked about enough on this,
Right. No.
um,
I
he
think he's
is.
huge in this series. I'm
Oh yeah.
very scared of him, and I don't know who's going to guard him.
Well, that's the thing is like they can go to that and have been way more willing to go to that than they have been in previous years. And Porter's paid that off despite all the other things that have happened with him over the course of these past few months. He has been really, really good on frankly on both ends of the floor. And because Denver has three options that they can go to as opposed to two, it will mostly just be Murray Jokic, and they'll be able to find opportunities in the mid-range, opportunities in the floater zone that a defense like the T-Wolves is they're wanting to give up most of the time in those. Like, hey, you are going to give up contested twos. Denver's probably the best contested two team in the NBA. And
yeah, that can't be the mentality if you're the Wolves. It can't be like we're given this. And to their credit, it wasn't in the Phoenix series.
Yeah.
Like there is a level the Wolves can get to defensively. Not for all 82. They didn't do it for all 82 games during the season, but it was like there, man, right at the beginning of the season where it's like, if they want to stay attached, they can stay attached.
Yeah.
And particularly like the screen navigation on the high pick and roll, like Jaden and Nikhil can stay attached. And particularly Jaden can get that rear view contest all the time. He's got this like umbrella hands over Jamal when he's going to be getting in there. And I think like that like, okay, we are up. We are leveling up that 15% that the Wolves know that they can get to in late game. And I think that can be somewhat of an antidote to the most potent late game offense in the NBA and maybe in history, you know?
Yeah.
But like, I think the Wolves have a little bit more for that than we might expect. Like, I think we might have a game at some point in the series where it is even closer to that. Maybe the Wolves are down by one with 5 minutes left. And you're like, what? The Wolves beat them? Like that's possible. And it'll be the defense. It just will be a little bit harder, you know, just a little bit harder in those spots, particularly for Jamal, I think.
Yeah.
And that's the difference of those buzzer beaters. Those Lakers shots are different if that's Jaden McDaniels on them. It's just a little bit different.
Yeah, it's for that reason that I think the ball's going to find its way to Jokic a little bit more frequently. And if that's the case, if it's Towns defending in the post as opposed to Gobert in that regard, like that's the one opportunity late in a game where you're Denver, you probably feel better about him taking Cat one-on-one.
Yeah.
And like just understanding that, hey, he's gonna try to get Cat off of his feet. He's gonna try to get him unbalanced. And Jokic has just so many different counters that he can use in a small amount of space and just doesn't need that much in order to find the 8-foot flip shot, you know? So I think that's probably where it pivots to, because I think you're right. I do, and the Nuggets fans have a healthy respect for Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They understand what they're getting into, and the Nuggets do too. But they will try to go through Jamal in a lot of those cases, and we'll see where it goes. And like we were talking about before, if that's one of those pivot points, then maybe advantage Wolves heading back to Minnesota.
I do think if Jamal runs into a wall, then it does go to Jokic more. And I wonder if in that situation, and again, like there's a minute and a half left in the game, do you switch it and do you just put Rudy on Jokic there?
Yeah.
Because it is going to probably end up being a one-on-one situation where the help spy guy just might not be able to get there as much. They're going to set it up in a way where Gordon's going to be on the other side of the floor. So you really are going to need to leave him wide open, maybe open in the dunker spot for a lob. If you like, I just think the Wolves almost have to go to that. And then the question becomes like, can Rudy get a stop there? And the answer, if you watch the film, is no from this season. It was. I do think, though, when I'm talking about that 15% extra late in games, Rudy's got that more than anybody on this team. And Wolves fans know I've been watching this team all year. Like, there's a lot of fourth quarters where you're like, I knew Rudy was good, or Rudy was good defensively this game. That those last 8 possessions were insane.
Yeah.
And I wonder if Rudy can have that insane end of game defensive performance while in a one-on-one matchup with Jokic. I don't know. Probably not. Probably not. But that might need to be the lever you pull.
Like, here's the thing. If he's hiding out on Aaron Gordon for a lot of the game and Gordon's not making him work throughout the series, that leaves him fresher. It just does. Like, he's not going to have to fight as hard in those situations unless Gordon's doing that. And so that's where I kind of circle back to Gordon's my X factor, man. Like,
totally, dude.
You gotta put pressure on Gobert. You cannot let him do what he wants to do if you're Denver. And that's just roaming off of the non-shooter and making life hell for everybody else. So it's going to be fascinating. This is a chess puzzle for like the best offense, like clutch offense versus the defense with the most tools in the toolbox, in my opinion. Yeah, they've got so many different options that they can go to. And I cannot wait to see how this plays out.
I'm with you, man. Listeners, check out Ryan's. I know you're all consuming crazy amounts of Wolves coverage here. This is the time Denver's loaded too, man. You guys have heard me talk to Ryan on here many times, and Harrison and Brendan and Adam, and what they do there. There is a ton of great and accessible Nuggets coverage that will be on this series. You won't be able to get enough. I really recommend Ryan's work, and you can do that. Is it just milehighsports.com? Is that
that's exactly
URL there?
It's a great URL, man.
Yeah, it's easy. There's sometimes where I'm like, oh God, I'm like, what is that even the name of your publication? But milehighsports.com, reading Ryan's stuff. I think he did the Aaron Gordon piece was really good today, and just kind of, I think, does nail an X factor that the Wolves know that they need to kind of counter. That's what Ant said, Ryan. He was like, I said to him, what is something you did well in the regular season that you have to do in this series to win? And he said, take out certain players, which that means Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr. to me.
Yeah.
Maybe Jamal a little bit too. But that kind of like shut the water off.
Yeah.
And they did do that at sometimes during the season, right? To players who were the caliber of, they pretty much shut off Devin Booker's. Do you think Jamal Murray is better than Devin Booker?
During a regular season context, no. During a playoff context, like, it's hard to argue. Like, he has risen his game to another level on a consistent basis. And there are things that he'll struggle with. And he did struggle in this last Lakers series. I wonder how much of that was due to injury versus not. But like Jamal, as a Nuggets guy, I have learned that trusting Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray to find a way to get the job done, generally a good idea. Like, it generally works out pretty well. So we'll see what he does. He's a problem solver, and the T-Wolves are a problem.
Well put. That's what at the end of the day, comes down to those two and the answers the Wolves do or do not have for that. I can't wait for this, man. I don't know. I'll probably bug you to come on again.
Let's go.
Sometime in this series. We might be going here for a few weeks. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for giving me some time here on a Friday night, and I'll see you at the game tomorrow.
Of course. Good to see you, man.
You can all check out Ryan's work at Mile High Sports. God, are you at Blackburn NBA on Twitter?
At NBA Blackburn.
At NBA Blackburn. There we go. Give him a follow there. Ryan's a really good tweeter and a high volume tweeter.
That's not sure if that's a compliment.
Hey, me too. Me too. When you sometimes, I know how it is. Like the people who aren't a Wolves fan, they're probably just following me on Twitter. They're probably not listening to the podcast. It's like it's
get a little spicy on there. It's more fun that way.
Exactly. No, and you get into the weeds there as I do myself. So do be consuming Ryan's stuff. He's great at what he does. Next up with the show, I guess will be there's a game tomorrow, so there will be a post game pod. Me and Kyle. I'm really looking forward to it. Until then, he's Ryan. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Grinning hard so you can find me in the crowd, yeah, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.